My wife's protégé, Justin Miller, had a catchphrase for every disaster he caused. I'm just disrupting the system. During his first month, he handed out blood pressure medication instead of vitamins to 3 different wards, forcing the nursing staff to scramble for damage control. When scheduling surgeries, he bumped a critical heart bypass to make room for a minor lipoma removal, nearly causing a malpractice suit. When confronted, he just grinned carelessly. The fact that I can disrupt this system shows my talent. Rules are dead, but I'm alive. I'm just loosening up the soil for the establishment. I complained to my wife Sarah, but she dismissed it. He's young. He needs experience. Don't be so harsh, Ethan. That leniency lasted until the International Medical Board review. Justin swapped my presentation deck at the last minute. Instead of data, the screen was filled with cartoons and little virus monsters interspersed with basic medical jargon. I managed to swap it back just in time, saving the hospital's accreditation and millions in research grants. Afterward, he complained to Sarah with red-rimmed eyes. I stayed up all night making that deck. I just wanted to give the establishment a facelift. Why deny me? The establishment is rigid. I wasn't wrong. Incredibly, Sarah wanted to promote him to deputy head of medical services as compensation for his hurt feelings. I vehemently opposed it. Later, Justin got drunk, drove his car, and caused a wreck that left him in a persistent vegetative state. Sarah blamed me for everything. On the night of my birthday, under the guise of a celebration, she tied me to a chair, her eyes manic. You push him to this. Since you couldn't tolerate him, you don't deserve to live either. I felt the overdose of anesthetic cold in my veins. When I opened my eyes again, I was back to the day of the review. This time, I would let him see exactly what happens when you disrupt the system. Ethan, I'm in the conference room to set things up. You come over when you're done. Justin's overly sweet voice rang out of my office. I raised my head stiffly, looking at the face feigning innocence before me. I realized with a jolt that I had been reborn in my past life. It was this exact welcome meeting for the International Review Board. Justin had replaced my meticulously prepared presentation with his cartoons and virus monsters. I couldn't stand it then. I had my assistant bring the backup and switched it back to the professional, concise commercial style. The hospital kept its rating and funding, and everyone celebrated, but Justin cried to Sarah, claiming I stole his credit. Sarah, heartbroken for him, immediately proposed promoting him. I refused. In his 3 months here, he mixed up meds and botched surgery schedules. Every incident was a catastrophe, yet instead of improving, he acted proud, thinking himself unique and unconventional. And Sarah would just look at him adoringly, saying, Justin is still young. Give him more chances. Allowing someone like that to practice medicine was a curse on the hospital and its patients. I couldn't watch him destroy the hospital or the patient's hope for treatment. Feeling wrong, Justin went out drinking, drove drunk, crashed into another car and ended up comatose. When Sarah found out, she didn't blame his recklessness. Instead, she planned a special birthday for me. I thought our love, spanning from med school to marriage, was different. When we first graduated, living on meager residency stipends, she saved for 8 months just to buy me the latest smartphone. Later, as our lives improved, we gave interviews together and attended conferences. We had supported each other all the way until that birthday. She blindfolded me, led me to her office, promising a surprise, and then tied me up. Her eyes were ice cold as she said, You drove him to a dead end. Since you have no room for him, you don't need to be alive. The chilling sensation of the overdose hitting my veins. I didn't want to experience that again. Ethan, Justin, and I will go wait for the review board at the entrance. Sarah's voice interrupted my thoughts. She walked up to me and naturally took Justin's hand. Let Justin handle the presentation this time. It will help his future promotion. Justin squeezed Sarah's hand, the gesture natural and intimate. In my past life, I was blind to think this lack of boundaries was just a close mini relationship. Sorry, Ethan. I really need this opportunity, Justin said, pouting slightly. I suppressed the hatred and bitterness surging in my chest, looked up and smiled. Sure, it's only right. Sarah looked at me with slight surprise, then offered a concession as if to compensate me. I'm glad you're being sensible. I'll prepare a surprise for your birthday later. We're leaving now. I nodded, watching them walk out of the office. Since Sarah was willing to gamble the hospital's entire future and reputation to play house with her precious protégé, how could I not let them enjoy themselves to the fullest? I changed into a freshly pressed white coat and arrived at the conference center early. The reception hall was brilliantly lit with a bilingual welcome sign standing under the massive hospital emblem. Thinking about the solo show Justin was about to perform, I hid a cold smirk behind my hand. Sarah arrived promptly, escorting the review board. I stepped forward to shake hands with Professor Smith. "Welcome, Professor. I hope the journey wasn't too tiring." My fluent greeting brought a hint of a smile to Professor Smith's serious face. Just as we were exchanging pleasantries, a commotion erupted from the end of the corridor. Justin rushed in, holding his phone high. The camera lens pointed directly at the review board, nearly colliding with a senior evaluator. "Hey fam, look at this. This is the legendary International Review Board. I'm live on the scene right now," he shouted at his phone. His white coat was wrinkled, a light-up anime pin was fastened to his chest, and 3 toy magic wands protruded from his pocket, clinking as he ran. The reception hall went instantly silent. Professor Smith took a half-step back, looking bewildered. In my last life I had suppressed my anger, made him cut the live stream and fixed his appearance. He turned around and cried to Sarah that I embarrassed him in front of outsiders. This time I smiled and stepped aside, giving him ample space to perform. "Hello, professors. I'm Justin Miller." He extended his hand, still holding his phone. Professor Smith's gaze lingered on the anime pin and the wands, his brow furrowing deeply. He made no move to shake hands. The atmosphere solidified into awkward ice. Sarah quickly stepped in. "Professor Smith, this is Dr. Miller, a young key member of our staff. He has a very innovative spirit." Professor Smith offered a symbolic brief handshake. "Young people are energetic." Justin immediately puffed out his chest, triumphant. "Professor, you have a great eye. I disrupt the system like this to prove that innovation requires the courage to break rules." As he spoke, he pulled out a bubble machine gun and pulled the trigger. Colorful bubbles instantly drifted through the venue. "See? Doesn't this make the academic atmosphere more lively?" Professor Smith instinctively dodged a drifting bubble. One of the evaluators couldn't hold back a sneeze. Sarah hurriedly intervened. "Justin, stop it." Watching Sarah's flustered panic gave me a rush of satisfaction. I deliberately engaged Professor Smith in a conversation about industry trends, walking slowly at the back. Sure enough, Justin's need for attention flared up again. He bounced over to the conference table and started rearranging the carefully placed name placards. "Oh, this arrangement is too traditional. It's more fun to mix it up." He swapped the name tags of senior experts with junior doctors, even moving Professor Smith's tag to a spot near the door. When he finished, he clapped his hands proudly and gestured to the board in the crowd. "Everyone sit according to the new seats. This way we can fully exchange ideas. Don't be polite." I raised an eyebrow. The seating had been meticulously arranged by the administration department, based on protocol, rank, and language proficiency. I saw Sarah's brow furrow, ready to object. I immediately spoke up before she could, my tone serious. "Justin, the seating was carefully considered. Don't mess with it." Justin hated taking orders from me. If Sarah had spoken, he might have listened, but as I expected, his rebellious streak kicked in instantly. He pouted, looking at Sarah with puppy dog eyes. "Sarah, the original arrangement was too rigid. Exchange needs randomness to create sparks. I think this is great." Sarah, still possessing some sense of the occasion, tried to be stern. Justin listened and changed the tags back, but her voice was light, devoid of real reprimand. Professor Smith and his team stood aside, impatience already visible on their faces. Another evaluator tried to smooth things over. "It doesn't matter where we sit as long as it facilitates communication." Though the words were polite, the displeasure in Professor Smith's eyes was obvious. The evaluator's polite remark was like a royal decree to Justin. He winked at Sarah gleefully, wearing an "I told you so" expression. Sarah's eyes were filled with helplessness. "Yes," she smiled indulgently. "Fine, let's leave it, but don't take matters into your own hands next time." "Thanks, Sarah." Justin's voice was cheerful. Professor Smith said nothing more. He sat down near the door, his fingers gripping his file with barely concealed tension. I laughed coldly inside. Sarah's rationality had apparently been eaten by dogs. Just because of a polite remark, she allowed Justin to solidify this ridiculous seating arrangement. In the past life I had stopped this farce. In this life he was certainly delivering plenty of surprises. Once everyone was seated, Sarah signaled for the meeting to officially begin. I lifted the teacup in front of me, blowing gently on the steam to hide the sneer at the corner of my mouth. The show was finally starting. According to the hospital's plan, I was supposed to present a rare congenital heart disease case and a multidisciplinary treatment plan, but Sarah had forced me to yield the floor to him. He shot me a contemptuous look and strode quickly to the podium. For this case, I prepared a version that's super easy to understand. Sarah looked at him expectantly, nodding encouragingly. Justin confidently connected the laptop. The projector lit up and a screen full of garish, colorful cartoons popped up. The heart was drawn as a red balloon with a smiley face. Blood vessels were colorful slides, and platelets were cartoon soldiers holding little shields. "Everyone, please look," Justin said excitedly, using a tone reserved for kindergartners. "This is our little friend, Mr. Hart. He's been a bit unhappy lately because some bad guys broke in." He clicked to the next slide. It featured virus monsters drawn in crayon style, accompanied by a nursery rhyme. Professor Smith paused, his pen hovering over his notebook. Sarah's smile froze. She quickly tried to cover for him. "Dr. Miller uses a very vivid way to help us understand complex cases." Then came the second page, the third. The medication regimen was depicted as energy potions. The surgical process became a warrior's quest, and post-op care was labeled love missions. Slide after slide of childish, laughable images flashed by. Professor Smith's face darkened visibly. He took off his glasses, rubbed the bridge of his nose, and didn't look at the screen again. Sweat beaded on Sarah's forehead. She finally realized something was wrong. She whispered a reminder. "Justin, just cover the key points." "Almost done." Justin clicked another page with high spirits. "This is the best part." On the slide, a cartoon doctor held a giant syringe with a caption, "Shots don't hurt at all." "Justin," Sarah couldn't help but snap, using his full name in a low shout. Startled by her tone, Justin pouted. "Aggrieved Sarah, I stayed up for nights making this. Isn't it fun to present like this?" Professor Smith looked livid. His assistant, unable to endure it any longer, slammed her notebook shut. "Vice President Jenkins." The assistant looked coldly at Sarah. "Is this your hospital's professional standard? Using these tricks for children to present a case?" She glanced at the screen where the cartoon slides were still playing and let out a scoff. "Is there any academic value in this content? Does your hospital consider the review board members to be preschoolers?" Professor Smith's assistant was a middle-aged woman with gold-rimmed glasses and a rigorous demeanor. She had been with him for nearly a decade and was his most effective spokesperson. The anger Professor Smith couldn't express politely, she delivered. Knowing this, Sarah felt a chill run through her as she watched Professor Smith sit expressionless, letting his assistant attack. She stood up abruptly, bowing deeply to Professor Smith. "Professor, I am terribly sorry. This is completely unexpected. Dr. Miller is young and lacks experience. He just wanted to use a more innovative way to present the case. Our hospital's academic level and professional attitude are absolutely sincere. I will have him represent using the standard protocol immediately." The assistant pushed her glasses up her nose, laughing coldly, her tone sharp. "Lacks experience? Vice President Jenkins, does your hospital's professional attitude involve letting a rookie run wild? Or is your hospital's medical level and attitude just as childish as these cartoons?" Hearing the attack directed at him, Justin immediately straightened his back, unconvinced. "So what if I lack experience? I know I'm disrupting the system, but I worked really hard." "Okay." The conference room fell into a dead silence. I covered a cough to hide the laugh that nearly escaped. Disrupting the system. He actually used that childish excuse in this setting. What did he think an international medical review was? A playground where he could disrupt and run wild? Professor Smith's mouth twitched, his face completely dark. The assistant looked like she had seen a ghost. It took her a long time to speak again. She laughed in anger. Disrupting the system? Vice President Jenkins, is your hospital serious? You let an arrogantly blind brat present at an event like this? Are you looking down on this review, or are you looking down on the entire committee? The accusation of looking down on the committee was heavy. The results directly impacted the hospital's future international rating, research funding, and academic status. Countless hospitals fought tooth and nail for their approval. We only secured Professor Smith because my retired mentor, a titan in the medical field, had personally pulled strings. Sarah was truly panicked now. She turned and hissed at Justin. Justin, shut your mouth. Then she turned to Professor Smith, her posture humble to the extreme. Professor, 1,000 apologies. Is this my poor management and lack of supervision? Please calm down. We will fix this immediately. Desperate, she signaled Justin frantically. Justin, quick, take out the printed case summary and core data. The one I helped you check. Justin froze, panic flashing across his face. Summary? The printed draft? The file I told you yesterday to study and keep as a backup. Sarah squeezed the words through clenched teeth, her patience exhausted. Get out. Justin's eyes darted around. He fumbled in his backpack, mumbling. That you said. I might not need it. It was just a backup. Now is the time you must use it. Sarah's voice carried an undeniable urgency. Finally, Justin pulled a somewhat formal-looking brown craft paper envelope from a pile of random items. Sarah immediately forced an apologetic, ingratiating smile. Professor Smith, these are the detailed materials for the case we prepared, containing complete diagnostic data and logical deductions. Please have a look. Hearing there were detailed written materials, Professor Smith's tight expression relaxed slightly. Rigorous text was far more reliable than cartoon slides. If the content was solid, perhaps some impression points could be salvaged. Justin walked over with the envelope, his steps unsteady. The folder was transparent. It looked professional enough. Sarah continued her damage control. We prepared these materials for a long time. The data is detailed. The thinking is clear. Everyone's eyes focused on that life-saving document. Even the evaluator showed looks of renewed scrutiny. I watched the folder with leisure, the corner of my mouth lifting slightly. I knew exactly what was inside. I gave a sweating Justin a meaningful look. What must come will come. Under the expectant gazes of the crowd, Justin's trembling hand pulled the material from the envelope. In the next second, it felt as if the breathing of everyone in the conference room stopped. That material Justin pulled out was no case summary. It was a massive glossy, brightly colored poster of a girl group. On the poster, young girls in sparkly outfits and heavy makeup were winking and making heart signs at the camera. In the corner, written in wobbly fluorescent marker were big letters. Justin's fave fighting. The conference room plunged into a deathly silence. You could hear a pin drop. The only sounds were the faint hum of the projector fan and Justin's suddenly heavy breathing. Professor Smith's gaze was nailed to the poster. His facial muscles were rigid, frozen. Beside him, the assistant's eyes widened behind her gold-rimmed glasses, filled with disbelief. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. The blood drained from Sarah's face in an instant. She stared at the poster, her expression shifting from confusion to bewilderment, and finally to utter horror and panic. This? What is this? Her voice was dry, almost broken. Justin was so scared his hand shook, and the poster drifted to the floor, face up. The smiles of the girl group members seemed blindingly bright in that moment. Justin's lips trembled, incoherent. I was printing materials yesterday and I printed this too. Maybe I packed the wrong one by mistake. Packed the wrong one? Professor Smith finally found her voice sharp enough to cut the air. At such a critical international medical review, you were telling us you put a Pop Idol poster into the case report folder. She stood up abruptly, her chair screeching against the floor. Absurd. This is an insult to our intelligence. Professor Smith stood up slowly. He was expressionless, but his cold disappointment and anger were more suffocating than any shout. He didn't even look at Sarah or Justin. He spoke clearly and coldly in English to his team. I see no necessity to continue. Let's go. No, Professor, please listen to me. Sarah almost lunged forward, blocking Professor Smith's path in a panic, her words tumbling out. It was an accident. I assure you our hospital's true standard is not like this. She snapped her head around, her eyes glaring at Justin like knives, her voice twisted by extreme anger and fear. Justin Miller, look what you've done. What is in your brain? What did I tell you yesterday? Did my words go in one ear and out the other? Justin flinched, his eyes instantly turning red. He defended himself aggrievedly. Sarah, I didn't mean to. I just wanted to motivate myself. Motivate with a girl group poster? Sarah was shaking with rage, pointing a trembling finger at him. You destroyed everything. Do you know that? Enough. Professor Smith interrupted the farce coldly. He bypassed Sarah and walked straight to the door. The board members stood up, undisguised disdain and anger on their faces. Vice President Jenkins. The assistant paused before leaving, looking back at Sarah with heavy sarcasm. We have certainly experienced your hospital's innovative spirit and youthful energy today. Forgive us for not staying. The group left the room without looking back, leaving behind a dead silence and a complete mess. The door slammed shut as if closing the gate to the hospital's top-tier international rating. Sarah seemed to lose all strength, stumbling back and grabbing the podium to stay upright. Her face was pale, her eyes hollow, cold sweat on her forehead. Justin stood there, head down, shoulders shaking as he began to emit small, pitiful sobs. Sarah, I am sorry. I really didn't know this would happen. Sarah jerked her head up. Her look at Justin was complex to the extreme. Anger, disappointment, but deep down there was still a trace of undetectable heartache. I stood in the corner watching it all indifferently. The frozen lake in my heart didn't ripple. The cold sensation of the anesthetic from my past life reminded me clearly this woman's heart was biased beyond redemption. What's the use of saying sorry now? Sarah's voice was full of exhaustion and despair. It's over. It's all over. She mumbled, her eyes sweeping over the empty seats, the glaring poster on the floor, and finally landing on me. Her eyes suddenly lit up with a faint glimmer as if grabbing a life raft. She rushed over, grabbing my arm, her nails digging into my flesh. Ethan, think of something. Her tone was urgent, pleading in a way she never had been before. You talked to Professor Smith earlier. He had a good impression of you. Go chase them. Explain. Say Justin is a temp. He's already fired. Say you're responsible for everything. Looking at her anxious, begging face, I felt only irony. In the past life she killed me for this man. In this life she begged me to clean up his mess. Sarah. I slowly pulled my arm back, my voice calm. Do you think after that series of performances Professor Smith will believe a single word we say? They will think it's just another scapegoat we pushed out to save face. Sarah's eyes dimmed instantly, but she didn't give up. Then what do we do? Just watch the review fail. Watch the rating and funding vanish. This is our life's work. My life's work? I repeated softly, a barely perceptible curve on my lips. Perhaps I paused, letting her stew in despair before speaking slowly. However, I did prepare something. Sarah's eyes lit up again. What did you prepare? Before coming here, I had my assistant compile the complete case data analysis, and all relevant papers our department has published in international journals in recent years into a hardcover booklet. I looked at her, my tone indifferent. It's in the safe in my office. Originally, I planned to give it to the review board as reference material after the presentation. In fact, this was the backup plan I started preparing the moment I was reborn. I knew Justin would ruin it, and I knew Sarah couldn't cover for him. Sarah's face exploded with wild joy. Really? Quick, go get it. We'll chase the professors now. There's still a chance. I didn't delay. I turned and walked quickly to my office. Sarah followed close behind, and Justin, wiping his tears, hesitated before tagging along. When I took out the beautifully bound, content-rich booklets, Sarah snatched one and flipped through it rapidly. Inside were rigorous data charts, clear medical imaging, and logically tight treatment analysis, all in English. Professional and grand, it was worlds apart from Justin's cartoons and posters. This is great. This is great. Sarah's voice trembled with excitement. She looked at me, her eyes filled with the relief of a survivor and a complicated gratitude. Ethan, you're the only reliable one. Quick, let's go to the hotel. They must be packing. We drove to the hotel where the review board was staying. On the way, Sarah clutched the booklets tightly, constantly urging the driver to go faster. Justin sat in the back, head down, occasionally stealing glances at Sarah and me, pouting, looking entirely unhappy. He seemed to feel my unnecessary action only highlighted his incompetence. Arriving at the hotel, we ran into Ms. Vance, Professor Smith's assistant, in the lobby just as she was heading out. Vice President Jenkins. Dr. Carter. Ms. Vance looked surprised, her brow furrowing immediately, her tone distant. Is there something else? Sarah immediately forced the most polite, sincere smile and approached, offering the booklets with both hands. I am so sorry to disturb you regarding what happened at the meeting today. On behalf of the hospital, I extend my deepest apologies to you and Professor Smith again. It was an unforgivable accident. She took a deep breath. This is the complete academic material prepared by Dr. Ethan Carter for that rare case containing our core research data and results. We know today's error cannot be easily erased, but we implore you and the professor to take a moment to look at this. This is our hospital's true academic standard. Ms. Vance's gaze fell on the well-crafted booklet, her eyes flickering slightly. She hesitated for a moment, then took it and flipped through a few pages. Her eyes lingered on the rigorous data and charts significantly longer than she had on the cartoons. Dr. Carter's material. She looked up at me, her tone softening by a fraction. I stepped forward, nodding with dignity, but neither arrogance nor humility. Yes, I have followed this case for 3 years. All the relevant data is here. Additionally, regarding the multidisciplinary collaborative process that was interrupted in the meeting, there is a detailed explanation inside which might answer some of the questions the professor raised earlier. Ms. Vance closed the booklet and mused. I will pass it to Professor Smith. Her tone was still businesslike, but no longer bone-chillingly cold. But please do not get your hopes up. The impression today was truly terrible. We understand. Thank you so much. Sarah bowed repeatedly, hope reigniting on her face. Back in the car, Sarah let out a long sigh as if unloading 1,000 pounds. She looked at me, her eyes much softer. Ethan, thanks to you today. I didn't speak, just gazing at the passing nightscape outside the window. In my heart it was cold. The car stopped downstairs at my apartment. Sarah seemed still immersed in the relief of escaping disaster. She smiled at me. Ethan, you go up first. I'll take Justin home. His emotions are a bit unstable today. Through the window I saw Justin standing by the curb, kicking stones with his head down, looking exactly like a child who had been terribly wronged. Okay, I answered crisply, opening the door. I didn't look back, walking straight to the entrance. At the elevator I looked back on impulse. The car was still there. Through the lowered window I saw Sarah leaning sideways, patting Justin's shoulder gently, comforting him. Justin leaned into her, his head almost resting on her shoulder. The intimacy was blinding, expressionless. I withdrew my gaze and stepped into the elevator. The cold metal doors reflected my emotionless face. Home was still home, tidy, spacious, but cold without a trace of life. It was less a home and more a hotel where Sarah and I slept occasionally after work. The warmth of school uniform to wedding dress had long been worn away by her repeated favoritism and, in a previous life, that cold syringe. I sat on the sofa in the dark, waiting quietly. About an hour later, the sound of a key turning came from the door. Sarah was back. She turned on the light and jumped when she saw me on the sofa. Ethan, why aren't you asleep? She asked while changing shoes, her tone carrying a hint of fatigue. Waiting for you, I said calmly. She sat next to me. She seemed to carry a faint scent of Justin's cologne. Today really scared me to death. She rubbed her forehead, leaning back. Thank God you had a backup. Professor Smith might still have room for reconsideration, right? I didn't answer her question. Instead I asked, is Justin stable now? Sarah paused, her tone helpless. Yeah, I dropped him off. He just has a child's heart. He thinks too simply. He knows he was wrong this time. He cried pretty hard. A child's heart. I interrupted her, my voice not loud, but carrying a chill that made her flinch. Sarah, he is an adult holding a medical license. His behavior today, to put it lightly, was negligence. Heavily speaking, it was a desecration of the seriousness of the medical profession. He treated the hospital's future as a joke. Sarah's expression changed, seemingly annoyed that I was still holding on to it. Isn't it over? Didn't you fix it? Justin learned his lesson. Can't you be a bit more generous? Over. I laughed lightly, the sound distinct in a quiet living room. Sarah, do you really think this matter just passes like this? Early the next morning, Sarah and I arrived at the hospital together. The atmosphere was clearly off, oppressive, heavy. Medical staff we passed looked at Sarah with strange expressions, greeting her hurriedly before walking away fast. Clearly, the farce of yesterday's review had spread through the hospital in various versions. Sarah looked terrible but forced herself to stay calm. As soon as she reached her office, she started making calls, trying to contact Miss Vance to gauge the reaction to the materials. I watched her back, feeling nothing. At 10 a.m., the hospital convened an emergency executive meeting. Besides the vice presidents and department heads, several key board members were present. The atmosphere in the conference room was heavier than the weather outside. Sarah sat at the head, trying to maintain composure, but the dark circles under her eyes and trembling fingers betrayed her nerves. Justin had actually been summoned too, sitting in a corner, head down, playing on his phone, seemingly unaware of the gravity of the situation. The meeting began, and a senior vice president fired the first shot, targeting yesterday's accident. Vice President Jenkins, please explain what exactly happened in front of the International Review Board yesterday. Why did such inconceivable things occur? Sarah took a deep breath, trying to minimize liability. It was an accident. Dr. Miller is young and inexperienced, overly eager to show innovation, leading to an error. We have already conducted damage control, and Dr. Carter has also conducted damage control. A board member interrupted her coldly, slamming a report onto the table. According to our information, Professor Smith's team officially notified us this morning that they are terminating this review, and they have placed our hospital on a probationary watch list. What? Sarah stood up abruptly, her face turning paper white. Clearly, she looked at me pleadingly, everyone's eyes focused on me. I stood up slowly, speaking calmly. Yes, the review is confirmed terminated. Professor Smith's side received the materials Sarah and I sent yesterday, but they stated they cannot accept assessing our so-called professional level after such an unprofessional farce. The conference room went into an uproar. It's over. An old department head slumped in his chair. Sarah Jenkins, you caused this, the board member shouted sternly. You pushed through all objections to bring Justin Miller in. You indulge his mistakes time and again. This time you handed such a critical review to him. What do you take this hospital for? Your playground. Sarah swayed, almost losing her balance. She suddenly looked at me, her eyes filled with the anger of betrayal. Ethan Carter, didn't you say yesterday you fixed it? Why is it still like this? I met her gaze, my eyes cold. What I salvaged was the hospital's last shred of dignity, not a safety net for your stupidity. You, Sarah, she choked. Just then Justin, who had been on his phone, seemed disturbed by the noise. He looked up disgruntled. Why are you arguing? It's just a broken review. If it's gone, it's gone. Is it worth making such a big deal? His voice wasn't loud, but in the dead silence of the room, it was terrifyingly clear. Everyone's gaze shot toward him like arrows. The board member laughed in anger. Good. If it's gone, it's gone. Vice President Jenkins. This is the young key personnel you spoke of. Childheart. Sarah panicked completely, seeing the angry glares in Justin's indifferent face. She suddenly sought a scapegoat, pointing at me and screaming. It's him. It's Ethan. He had the ability to stop all this. He prepared the materials long ago, but deliberately didn't say anything. He waited for Justin to fail. He waited for the hospital to suffer. His heart is punishable. Even now, she wanted to push the main responsibility onto me. Watching her hysterical performance, I felt only pity. This was the moment I was waiting for. Facing Sarah's accusation, I showed no panic. I even smiled slightly. Sarah, even now you're protecting him. I took a file from my briefcase and placed it heavily on the conference table. Since Vice President Jenkins mentioned my heart is punishable, I happen to have some things here for the directors to review. Sarah stared at the file, having a bad premonition. Justin finally put down his phone, looking at me uneasily. What is this? A board member picked up the file. This is a detailed record of every error handled by Dr. Justin Miller in the 3 months since he joined, along with copies of relevant evidence. My tone was steady, as if giving a routine case report, including but not limited to pharmacy records of dispensing antihypertensives as vitamins, causing abnormal blood pressure fluctuations in 3 patients, system logs of unauthorized surgery rescheduling, nearly causing a bypass patient to miss their window, and his transcripts failing our hospital's basic medical regulation exams. I listed them one by one. With every item, Sarah's face paled further. Justin's head drooped lower, and the board members' faces darkened. These are mostly minor errors. I already handled them. Sarah tried to argue. Handled them. I looked at her sharply. So your handling was suppressing the reports, giving verbal warnings, and then keeping him in a critical position. Vice President Jenkins, is this administrative negligence or nepotism and cover-ups? I emphasized the last few words heavily. They struck like a gavel. Sarah stumbled back, hitting her chair with a screech. She looked at me with shock, anger, and fear. She finally understood I wasn't defending myself. I was counterattacking. Additionally, I turned to the board, dropping the final bombshell. According to my information, Dr. Miller's employment was secured through Vice President Jenkins' special recommendation power, and his entry exam scores underwent a certain degree of polishing. Ethan Carter, you're spitting blood. Sarah screamed. Losing control. Whether I'm spitting blood or not, checking the original exam records and interview score sheets will make it clear. I remained calm. I believe the board has the authority to access those files. The conference room exploded. The evidence was solid. The logic was clear. Sarah's negligence and corruption, Justin's incompetence and dereliction of duty were laid bare for all to see. Those who had some sympathy for Sarah now looked at her with utter coldness. This was a matter of principle, shaking the hospital's foundation. Sarah Jenkins, the chairman of the board, an elderly man who rarely appeared, spoke slowly, his voice carrying undeniable authority. You have disappointed us greatly. He looked around the room and delivered the verdict. Effective immediately, Sarah Jenkins is stripped of all administrative duties and will undergo an internal investigation. Justin Miller is fired immediately, never to be rehired. Daily management of the hospital will be temporarily overseen by Dr. Ethan Carter. The dust settled. Sarah collapsed to the floor as if her spine had been removed, her eyes unfocused. Justin looked bewildered, seemingly unable to process that he had been fired. I walked up to Sarah, looking down at her. The love of the past had turned to ash in the scheming of my rebirth and the reckoning of this moment. I took a document I had prepared long ago from my pocket and placed it gently on a table in front of her. It was divorce papers. Sign it, Sarah. My voice held no hate, no love, only utter indifference. We should have ended this a long time ago. Sarah jerked her head up, looking at the papers, then at me. Tears finally surged, mixed with despair and regret. Ethan, no. I can't live without you. I know I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. Watching her weep, my mind flashed back to her cold, crazy eyes as she injected the overdose in my past life. I said nothing more. Turning around amidst complex gazes, I walked out of the conference room. Behind me came Sarah's broken sobbing and Justin's panicked shouts of, Sarah, what's wrong with you? It had nothing to do with me anymore. 1 month later, Sarah signed the divorce papers. She lost her job and her marriage. After being blacklisted, Justin used Sarah's old connections to barely scrape into a small clinic in a remote area. Rumor had it he continued to act as he pleased, always talking about disrupting the system until last week. Due to carelessness, he prescribed medication containing penicillin to a child with a severe allergy. The child went into anaphylactic shock and nearly died. The enraged family blocked him at the clinic entrance and beat him severely. Rumor has it he was badly injured, and because of this severe malpractice, he is facing the revocation of his medical license and possibly prison time. When the news came back, Sarah came to find me once. She was so haggard she was almost unrecognizable. She grabbed my arm, begging bitterly. Ethan, I know I was wrong. Really? I was possessed. Let's remarry. Okay, we can start over. I can't live without you. I looked at her quietly, seeing the genuine regret and pain in her eyes. But I knew that regret stemmed mostly from the loss of her status, reputation, and comfortable life. And the endless trouble brought by the protégé she now saw clearly as mud that couldn't stick to the wall. Perhaps there was a trace of regret regarding me, the ex-husband she once threw away like old shoes who now stood high above her. Sarah. I gently peeled her hand away, my tone flat. We were over a long time ago. Take care of yourself. I turned and left, never looking back. Sunlight streamed through the hospital windows, bright and warm in the corridor. Holding the rounds log, I walked toward the wards. At the end of the hall, a female doctor with elegant temperament and a gentle smile was communicating patiently with a patient's family. Seeing me, she nodded politely, her smile clean and soft. I nodded back slightly. A new life perhaps was just beginning. Story complete.